Now we're calling on the African National Council. We're calling on the Southwest African People's Organization. Now we're calling on the African National Council. We're calling on the Southwest African People's Organization. Now! And the children cry, freedom. On the bed door rise, freedom. See my people crying for freedom. Freedom. And the children weep, freedom. And red blood runs weak, freedom. See my people crying for freedom. 400 years now we've been working as your slave. Why can't you free us? Let us have a separate ways. Equal rights and justice wasn't made for just one man. Demand our freedom cause we need a liberation. Hey, freedom of expression, freedom of speech, written in the Human Rights of Declaration. So, whoa, whoa, whoa. And the children weep, and red blood runs deep. See my people crying for freedom. Hear the children cry, and does that all rise? See my people crying for freedom. We need the freedom in a full equality. Freedom for Mandela from apartheid misery. We don't need no sanction from no big time hypocrites. While we there are so far they gone playing politics. Cause hey, freedom of expression, freedom of speech, written in the Human Rights of Declaration. So, whoa, whoa, whoa. And the children cry, and the dead all rise. See my people crying for freedom. And the children weep, and red blood run deep. See my people crying and they're weeping and they're wailing and they're crying and they're dying for freedom. Wow!
All right, Dominicans here and abroad. No matter where you're listening or locked into at this time, it's just about 5 minutes past the hour of 6 o'clock in Dominica and our Eastern Caribbean region. Those of you further afield and you're in different time zones, welcome on board as well. The much talked about program each and every Sunday emanating out of Dominica.
We don't need no sanction from no big time hypocrite.
It's called Civic Vibes. Yes, you heard me right, Civic Vibes. We are here.
Freedom of expression.
So yes, to one and all, welcome, welcome, welcome.
Speech.
Another very, very intriguing 2 hours awaits you guys. We're starting off with this one from our own brother Nasio Fontaine entitled Freedom.
Freedom.
So no matter where you are from at this time,
see my people dying for freedom.
if you're in bondage, yes, bondage in one way, shape, or form, Brother Nasio is calling for freedom for you. Yes, you, and you, huh? Brother Nasio Fontaine, good evening to you, my brother. You and your family out there, special greetings to you guys, huh? Keep up the good work, brother. My brother Alvin Thomas, wherever you are at this time. Alvin is a very, very busy man lately, huh? But he sent his apology, folks, to you guys out there. He may just pop in sometime later.
Freedom for Mandela from apartheid misery. We don't need no sanction.
But yes, a very, very interesting, a very informative program awaits you guys with the man, Mr. Rondell Thomas, former education officer
Freedom of expression
in the Ministry of Education in Dominica.
of speech.
First time, yes, first time on the vibes.
Human rights of declaration.
But he's always tuned in, a constant listener, constant contributor, I must say. So he's no stranger in that regard to Civic Vibes. So you're going to hear from the man this afternoon in live and living color, Mr. Rondell Thomas. In just a bit. Whenever these brothers speak, you must listen, huh? Very well spoken, I must say. A very intelligent brother.
See my people crying and the weeping and the wailing and the crying and
a very fearless one of that. Mr. Thomas speaks his mind each and every time.
Right now.
And the Mr. Thomas, Rondell Thomas that I know,
Genesis.
He has not given up on the cause for country. That is the cause of Dominica, to make it a much better place. So yes, he's a very, very patriotic brother indeed. Can be very funny as well. Very humorous guy at times.
Equality, freedom for Mandela from apartheid misery. We don't need no sanction from no big time hypocrites. While we there are suffer.
And he loves his music, yes indeed.
Freedom of expression.
He may, I repeat, he may just give you guys a treat in the end. Huh? He may. That is all up to him.
In the human rights of
with that good old harmonica. So yes, folks, please share the live, share that information. As we're about to get a start in just a while, make someone know that the program is on and they too can partake and participate thereof. Yes, that is your responsibility out there. Please share that live as we are moving on here.
Cause we cool the heat.
Just to touch base with some of you guys, Mr. Ray Buston, good evening to you. Dave Kazimi, you're there. My brother, Mr. Webster, Vieko. Guvelma Hambrin says, all on board. Let's go. Eliza Louise Combs, you're always there. John Harry, Al Charles, Magdalene Augustine, brother Peter, yes, Peter Carbon, you're in the house. Rosa Robinson says here, good evening, Lofty and Mr. Thomas. I'm locked in as usual. Heather James, all the way in the UK at this time. Good evening to you. Yes, good evening to you, Heather. Good evening to you and crew. My brother, very patriotic as well. Ferdinand Lawrence, you're in the house. Carolyn Warrington, you never miss. Good evening to you. Claudette Durand, good evening to you. Mr. Margel Durand, you're there as well. Good evening to you, my bro. And yes, all of you locked into that space at this time. It's just about 10 minutes past the hour of 6 o'clock. Again, I apologize for Mr. Alvin Thomas not being here tonight with us in the flesh, as it were. He's out on some duty, that is. But he has sent in his apology. But guess what? Another Thomas is here, Mr. Rondell. Yes, Rondell Thomas. And so, yes, we're expecting a very, very good conversation in just a while. Read the Education Act in Dominica, its relevance and importance.
And so we are a people, the 12 tribes of Israel. Yeah! Rastafari. Like I said, we need the freedom in a full equality. Freedom from
all those of you who are sick and short in at this time, good evening to you in a very special way from Civic Vibes and the team there. Whatever your ailment is at this time, we wish you all the very best.
Freedom of expression.
Extending sympathies to all of you who lost loved ones during this past week.
In the human rights of
to the Loader family and the Randy family, good evening to you, the Rodney family, that is.
The children cry.
We also heard the loss of one Dominican in St. Kitts and Nevis last night, I believe, who got shot, Mr. Sean Kadim.
For freedom.
So we have some people grieving out there.
Now the battle sleeps.
So to each and every one of you going through some kind of situation at this time that may bring tears to your eyes, we at Civic Vibes will sympathize or empathize with you, whatever the situation is at this time.
Oh, we realize.
So folks, yes, without saying much more, let me move across to Mr. Rondell Thomas, our guest, very, very important guest for this evening. Mr. Thomas, good evening to you, my brother. Welcome. Hi. And first time being on Civic Vibes Live with us. We appreciate your company very, very much. Good evening.
Thank you very much. I think you were careful to say first time live, but I'm always tuned to
Civic. What I said. That's what I said.
I appreciate that. So I appreciate the opportunity to be here this afternoon. I want to say hi to all the listeners and viewers and everybody else who's paying attention to an absolutely amazing, fascinating, and informative and engaging program, Civic Vibes. And I'm happy to be here. I don't know if I should go ahead and talk about my professional background or something before I start, or if you have any other important questions. By the way, hello, Alvin. I think 2 Thomases on that program will be overburdening. Too much for us to handle. So I think God said, I'm just letting one guy, one Thomas, because, you know, that's a strong bunch of people. Hi, Alvin, wherever you are, and thank you, Lofty, for having me. I really appreciate that.
Alvin, as I said, Arundel, as I said, good evening to you.
Call me Alvin, doesn't matter. Call me Alvin, call me Arundel.
The Arundel Thomas that I know that I really I'm proud of is that you're well-spoken, brother. Whenever you speak, I listen. Intelligent. Whenever you speak, I always hear that sort of intelligence come through. You're fearless. Whenever you speak, brother, you speak with a level of honesty. You speak your mind. You're very, well balanced in terms of your thoughts. They're well thought through, and so that is what I really and truly admire about you through the years that I've been in contact with you.
You're very kind. You can attribute that to the Lakuset language,
True.
Thank you.
Very, very patriotic as well.
Sentiments.
True. Thank you, my brother. Thank you indeed. Yes, let us just get right into it in the interest of time, 1:15 already. Brother Thomas, a lot of people, they may, be hearing you ever so often, but they don't know a little about you in terms of, your background, your stint in the education ministry, the education sector in Dominica. Just let's start there in terms of a brief introduction, brother.
Right, thank you. So I like to begin as close as possible to the beginning. The man from Lakuset land, that is Charlottesville, opposite Ruben's Bakery. And then Citron here, lived by the sea, poor guy. Attended the Rosewood Boys School in Newtown, next to the Savannah, Newtown Savannah. And after that, we were transferred to the old grammar school in Roseau. And I knew some of my good teachers there, like Dennis Joseph. Oh boy, I had great teachers there. Both at the primary school, Miss Edwards, Mrs. Christian, and a lot of good teachers at the primary school and so on. I was an avid reader. I think I used to, at primary school, they used to have me to come and read for the whole school, like all Roseau Boys School, Mr. Israel. Used to do that. And our first teacher, W.M. Pond, the man who wrote the gentleman who wrote the Dominica, the Isle of Beauty national anthem. He was once my teacher, great music background. Like all of my students days, let me take us slowly, my eyes, I talk too quickly. Sometimes at the older boys school, they taught you music and math, and well, we used to call that math, arithmetic, and language.
Arithmetic, yes.
And you know, I was also I find that strange. I used to be in athletics and stuff, but I certainly was. I represented at age 8. I represented my Rosa Boys School in a public speaking competition for primary schools. I remember my topic was children and their parents. That was long ago. I was about 8 years old, so nobody remembers that. However, that's it quick fasten the pace here because it can't dwell too long on the past. I'm a trained teacher. I'm a teacher of English language and English literature, and I began my teaching career from the grammar school at the Portsmouth Secondary School. That was an exciting experience in the early 1971 when the school just began. Okay. Our school at the PSS. I was one of the original teachers at the PSS. All the old guys, some of them like Reggie and Levi and Lennox and all them, and Alec and the ladies as well. All those ladies there, they were all students at the PSS. And I was the coordinator of the garden club and the drama club. When we went all over the island, Michael had a whole set of guys involved with drama. So I was a drama coordinator. And we had, every year, we staged a show at the RBD Cinema. I'm going there because this is important to show that education is not just about mathematics and English and stuff. So we had a drama club, we had a garden club. I recall we had a garden at the back of the school. We had lots of mango boulet, great stuff, and coconuts at the PSS. It was a great school. And we toured the entire island almost, performing plays and so on, and singing and dancing. We came to the St. Gerard's Hall once, all the way from Portsmouth on an old truck. And the drama club came and we performed at the St. Gerard's Hall. That was an awesome performance. Perhaps some of the persons listening might be former students of the PSS. I hear you calling a guy's name Marshall Lawrence from Portsmouth. That was a great musician at the time because, you know, the band used to practice on Bay Street there. Marshall, if you're listening, I think you remember that. So I began as an English teacher. We had just 3 classes, 3 forms, and then we gradually grew. And my first, I taught for a number of years, and then I went to Teachers College. I'm a trained teacher at the Dominica Teachers College, certified by the University of the West Indies. I attended the University of the West Indies, where I did my bachelor's degree in teacher education and literature, English literature. And my other professional master's degree is in educational management and development at New Mexico State University, where I did a master's degree in educational management, including school law. Among other things, we did school law. And I began to have an excitement and a passion for school law and things like that. So I retired. So I spent about 10 years or so as an education officer. And I was the first assistant chief education officer. And my duties involved staffing for all schools in the island, primary and secondary schools, supervision of schools. That I was coordinating a brilliant set of people, education officers, school learning officers, and guidance counselors. I was the sort of coordinator I was responsible for the operations of schools. And the other important task I had was to promulgate the Education Act, which was developed in which was affirmed in 1997 under the United Workers' Party government at the time. So, and I traveled to various islands, OECS, because it was an idea emerging from the OECS, the Organization of Eastern Caribbean States. So I traveled to several OECS countries, meeting other teachers, lawyers, educators, as we unraveled and discussed school law and the Education Act. So that was my background. And I visited every single school district and community to engage parents, teachers, and the whole community, PTAs, in the Education Act. So I feel I have some knowledge and, let's say, authority with respect to that part of it.
Yeah. You touch on something that sort of piqued my interest, the school law aspect. Can you stretch that? Can you just go into that a little bit to explain to us what that is involved?
School law. Well, Prior to the Education Act, there was what we call a school education ordinance, and nobody has heard about it under colonial days. So the British had some kind of weird kind of a set of rules or an ordinance, they call it, that kind of governed education. I don't think there was any strict obedience or adherence to that. But you know, Lofty, I always go back to the Dominica Constitution because it says in the preamble D that it says, whereas the people of Dominica, and I'm looking at D, recognize that men and institutions remain free only when freedom is founded upon respect for moral and spiritual values and the rule of law. So what the law does, a good law, and there are bad laws, but effective law reduces the risk of collapse. You see what happened at the grammar school? I always go back there in recent times. I believe one of the reasons why there was that catastrophic, and it could have been a worse, collapse of the roof was because somewhere along the line, the rule of law was violated. So I believe, the Constitution requires us to follow laws, to create laws that would improve our freedom. Because when you have law, you know exactly where you stand. So there's a no entry there. The law is clear. You wouldn't go there. You will try to follow the law and avoid traffic accidents. If there, you have to drive on the left side of the road in Dominica. You understand that? So when you follow the law, there's less risk of collapse, less risk of chaos. There'll already be chaos. So the education law is meant, well, we'll come to the purpose later, but when we reach that part of the conversation, I will go into the matter of the education law, its purpose, and we will look at various sections. But school law is important to create order in the classroom, order in the society, order for parents, order for teachers, order for students. So that's the importance of law. In America, when I studied law, school law, you have to, before you enter a school as an administrator, you have to know what laws govern the system. So law is important to guide. Law is important to reduce the incidence of collapse. Law is important to reduce chaos. So education law gives us guidance as to how to go about improving our education, sustaining our education, maintaining and ensuring that everybody functions in a way that would develop our education system in Dominica. That's why law is important.
True. Thank you for that sort of explanation there. You also touch on the arts. You are very much involved in it. The drama club. Can you just go a bit deeper, brother, to give us how being in a club such as a drama club would make a child, a student, much more holistic as it pertains to education?
Thank you very much. So I go back to my old school days at grammar school, where even outside the purview and the supervision of teachers, we had a reading club. Because we had a school library, and we had a drama club. We had fellows like Arlington James Fabien of the party, my brother from Benz, he died, and Riviere, and a number of us students, we came together and we formed the drama club at the Dominica Grammar School. We had a reading club, and we had competitions in our classrooms to see who could read the most books in a week. So, and then I also was in the literary and debating society at the Dominica Grammar School. And I represented the Dominica Grammar School at an elocution contest when fellows like Volney and Marie of the SME and other persons from the Convent High School, the Wesley High School, we had an elocution contest. And Baltrix, that is Clarendon, Romel Clarendon and myself represented the Dominica Grammar School. Dominica Grammar School had sports. Every student of the grammar school had to be participating in physical education and sports. It was compulsory up to physical education Form 3. And the drama club, we had a drama club at grammar school. And what I find is persons that are engaged in that kind of thing had a more balanced and a more engaging and a more productive view of education, and more exciting, because it releases stress and it helps you to develop skills and talents and abilities that you wouldn't get just by doing math. There are certain skills you can develop from doing math alone, language, science, and grammar school and all that. We had our science room, physics, chemistry, and biology. We had a reading room, we had a library, and we had the various clubs, the Bible club, the drama clubs, and those things help you to develop into a full person, a complete individual. So when I went to PSS, I had my drama thing in me already, and we had elocution contests, stuff like that. And so I decided, well, hey, PSS was going to have the best drama club in Dominica. I don't know what has happened, but I tell you, we had a great club, and we had dancing, and Athlene Douglas, she was a teacher down there, and Juliana McGlaw. Juliana McGlaw concerned herself with creative dancing, artistic dancing, and Athlene did dance, an African dance, and Caribbean song. And I had my guys and my girls doing drama. We performed various plays, and it was big. So these students, they developed skills and attitudes and competencies that went beyond just doing math and English and science. And the garden club was important. And we got help from at the time, the extension officers. They came to Portsmouth. I mean, I was, my garden days was carrying fig, going to the garden with my mother, picking up limes. But here we had an organized garden club. And then also at the Rosa Boys School, Mr. Dennis Joseph got us, we had a school garden by the Princery. And we did agriculture scientifically, how to make a seed box, how to make a bed, how to sow your seeds, how to transplant. And they used to call me at the Rosa Boys School to explain to the rest of the school. I know I was an agriculturist as such, explain how to make a compost, a heap, how to fix up the bed. Dennis Joseph, I recall, having me as a student at the Rosa Boys School. We had moved to Roseau to teach the guys, so to speak, talk to them about how to transplant, how to make the bed. And it was, we walked from the Rosa Boys School with our tools, who had a fork, who had a cutlass, because we had limited tools. And we walked along the road to the back of the Princery, at the back going towards the primary school there, the St. Mary's Primary. We had a garden there. And we went there and we had a scientific approach to gardening thanks to Dennis Joseph. He taught us how to do those things properly, you know what I mean? So we could get good results. So I had it instilled in me, and that is why I tell the students, education, and we'll come to that in the conversation with the bank people. It's not just about sitting down in the classroom and doing math and science. I wasn't very good at math at all. I hate it. But certainly, education is broader than the things you read in the books. And the more you can engage yourself as a human being, the better person you'll be. You have better emotions. You're able to relate and engage with other people. Well, hopefully, I mean, not everybody's perfect, but certainly it will give you a broader perspective of life, a better perspective of life, and you'll be a more informed and engaging person. I think I've said too much, right? You have to cut me off sometimes.
I know. It's very interesting. Yeah, it's very interesting you mentioned the name Mr. Dennis Joseph.
Yeah, that was my English teacher.
Yeah, just the past week I met him at a financial institution.
Hey, Dominica?
Yes.
But you don't, let me just cut you off. You know, Dennis Joseph taught me poetry. And there's so many poems I remember from Rosa Boys School. The day is done and the darkness falls from the wings of night. And I had to learn long poems. And Dennis Joseph was the one who ensured that we had a good mind, a good grasp of the language, and so on. And so, sorry, go ahead now.
No problem. And he asked me about, what about the programs, in that he's always locked in. And so just maybe this afternoon, you calling his name there this afternoon, he may be on. So Mr. Joseph up there in the Warner area, good evening to you, my brother, in a very special way. When you speak to Mr. Joseph, you can hear that very distinct voice. He has a very peculiar voice. There's no other voice like Dennis. A very deep radio sort of voice, and it really comes through. And so even if he's up in age now, but you can still hear and feel the emotions coming through.
Rich crescendo. Well, actually, I recall when Father Thomas, Eustace Thomas, and Dennis Joseph began their teaching career. They came in their grammar school dress tie at the Rosa Boys School at Newtown. I remember that. And Dennis Joseph has been my form teacher or class teacher from there all the way to the the old grammar school. So he's a formidable person, a great icon, and a person I admire and appreciate. Just like Alpha James at secondary school. Alpha James is a great math teacher. I'm dunce in math. I plot on the record. I'm not good at math at all. But Alpha James was my math teacher, but he was a good person, a great, compassionate, empathetic form teacher. Dennis Joseph cared about his students as well.
True.
Like all my other teachers, I might say.
Sure. All right, brother, just before it's 6:30, just before we go deeper into the Education Act in terms of the conversation to follow here, we have Dana, Philbert Peterson, you're there, Bernadette, Myla, good evening to you guys. You mentioned Mr. Lawrence Arundel a while ago, Marshall Lawrence, he's there.
Yeah,
he's
a musician.
He said, nice seeing you. We also have Dorian Dorival. Al Charles says, first time I'm seeing Mr. Arundel. Been listening to him for years on the radio. Good evening, sir. Ivinia Joseph, you're there as well, says, present teachers awaiting my A+ from my distinguished teacher and mentor. Patriots, good evening. Teresa Gabriel, also there, and many, many folks. Folks, yes, we are just now going to, go into the meat of the conversation, as it were, with the Education Act in Dominica, the purpose and the relevance thereof. And so, please, again, share the live. I'm seeing the numbers could be better. Hit that share button, send it to a friend, make them know that the program is on. And as I always say, they can listen on and share and comment as questions. When we open up the line sometime later, about 7 o'clock this evening, the numbers to call will be posted on your screen so you guys could interact with our guest here, Mr. Arundel Thomas, indeed. All right, Mr. Thomas, yes, let's go into it now in terms of the Act of Dominica, the Education Act, that is. Where do you want to start with us? Caribbean education in crisis. Okay, yes. Yes, we had this article here, so you want to chime in on that, yes.
Yeah, so let me give you this article. The article was published in February, 19 February 2025. And it's an article that gives a scathing report of education in the Caribbean. So there are some things here that we might want to pay attention to, and I will dovetail into the Education Act from this article.
Yeah.
The article says in the second paragraph that there was a virtual webinar on Monday sometime. Senior officials from the international financial institutions laid bare the systemic inadequacies plaguing Caribbean schools, and they highlighted outdated teaching practices, ill-equipped infrastructure, schools, poorly equipped, and the widening educational inequalities. They stressed the need for significant financial investment and enhanced teacher support. These are important things. Putting more money into schools and ensuring that your teachers are better trained to deal with the emerging challenges of teaching and education, to reverse the region's educational decline. So they're talking about, that's them, an educational decline in the Caribbean. Another important point they raise is they said teaching practices in the Caribbean are still traditional. I think we had a more diverse approach before, although we were limited. And they talk about countries that are not investing enough in capital expenditure or educational infrastructure, and schools are outdated and ill-equipped to handle increasing frequency of extreme climate matters. You notice in grammar school, they're building those small windows. And, imagine in the Caribbean, you're building a school, a secondary school, and it's almost like a prison. Have you seen the grammar school building? They have this little...
I see that building every day.
It's like the barracoons, like a barracoon. This is 2025. And you're building a school. My friend, you want to allow air to pass through the Caribbean. I mean, with protections for hurricanes and so on. So your concept of school is, when you look at the grammar school, a multi-million, I don't know, maybe billion from after that catastrophe project, and you build a structure that looks like a prison more than it does a school in 2025. And that must be part of the concerns that they're raising here. They also talk about access for people with special needs. So the World Bank said that they pointed to rigid curricula that failed to accommodate diverse learning needs and highlighted the absence of essential facilities such as accessible toilets and ramps. So how many blind students and people that have special abilities can really access our school? I do not know if they have elevators at the grammar school at the building. I'm talking about the secondary school. But if you notice, do they pay attention to access for people with special needs, for people that are visually impaired and have other challenges when you're building schools? So the bank article, the article from the World Bank, is addressing those things. And they also reveal that students are struggling, that's very important, with foundational skills such as literacy. That involves the ability to read, to apply what you read, to comprehend what you read, to evaluate what you read. So reading it's not just a matter of calling words, but the reading involves being able to apply what you read. First of all, you must identify the words and stuff like that. Then you must be able to apply and evaluate language. What does it mean? What is it saying? What can you elicit from what you're reading? You know, and Dennis Joseph was a great English teacher. It wasn't just about teaching us nouns and pronouns, which are essential and important because they are the rudiments of the language. You know, at the grammar school, at the primary school, we have to learn to parse and analyze. You need to know what work each word does in the sentence. So when you write a sentence, you write it consciously. You write it with confidence and authority. So you know you're using a pronoun, a verb, an adverb, an adjective, a preposition, a noun, whatever you're using, you know the purpose of the word in the sentence. So when I speak of the weakness in literacy and so on, and numeracy, math is not just about adding and subtracting. Using the maths to advance yourself, to advance your country, economics, analyzing the figures. What do they mean? Numeracy is not just about counting figures 1 to 10, and I can't count so well myself. But so they talk about problems, as bank paper we're referring to, in numeracy. And they say even in primary schools. And you probably have heard Lofty, some people are complaining that a lot of the students that are attending secondary schools have reading difficulties. Some of them are probably unable to read. So teachers have to be equipped to deal with different students, to teach them to read. To teach reading is a specialized skill. I recall when I was at UWI, there was a prize inventory. I had to take a student and to test the student's ability to read. It was teacher education in those days was a comprehensive education. We did agriculture, teacher education. We did infants methods, juniors, seniors. And you know, when you go to teachers college, you're expected to go back to the classroom because some students may be in first form, but chronologically, they're probably 15, 16, or 13, 14. But in terms of their I'm trying to remember how it is now, their knowledge, ability, they are at a much lower level. So a teacher in a classroom cannot lump all students together as one. That's what the bank message is saying. Okay. So you have to teach for diversity, even in your classroom. That's why we have groups set up in the class. Things like that teachers, the university is talking about. That school and education, I read long ago a book by Carl Jung, The Indivisible Self. And you know, we tend to believe that there's an average child. And when you teach in the class, you teach for the average child. In that book, The Indivisible Self, Carl Jung is arguing that there's no average person. Every person is an individual. And in a classroom, it is challenging. But the classroom must cater for people that are brighter, more advanced, and people that are slower. And I know the difficulty in getting that done because you need resources. And Dominica has billions of dollars, which would be way ahead in how our classrooms are maintained and the infrastructure as well as teaching things. So now they are pointing to children witnessing literacy, numeracy, even in primary schools. Numeracy skills in particular are lagging behind literacy. And they talk about also a very important part I want to mention here. The World Bank also highlighted the growing dissonance or disconnect between education and the labor market requirements. So when you're teaching, you have to teach children, give them skills that can help them to get a job. to go and produce, because education is just not just for education's sake. So they're pointing to the weaknesses in the school system that does not quite synchronize with the market, with the world market. You probably have heard that said by various employers and business people. You know, then they also note that Caribbean employers consistently report skills shortages. So this guy has a young son and he wants to go. The gentleman tells me he has a lathe at his home. He can do woodwork and so on. The boy wants to go and do accounting or business studies. When, you know, here's an opportunity to do, I say, well, students have to be taught that things like plumbing, electricity, woodwork, motor mechanics, these are very, very important skills. You have to do accounting if you're a good mechanic. You have to do language, all the skills, all the knowledge, body of knowledge is located in your ability to do woodwork. You have to read the plans, architectural drawing. You have to be able to do numeracy, to count, to measure the wood. You know what I mean? So people are sort of like, they have a narrow concept of education. I'm saying we probably had challenges in the past, so we were not perfect. But a lot of people, we had a junior secondary program, as you know, that got students to do things beyond reading and just reading and mathematics. And I'm not too sure what's happening in the schools now. So the World Bank article is pointing to that, the shortages of skills, including the current education system failing to prepare students for the workforce. I'm reading, just quoting the article that you gave me here. And they say, finally, according to Vic Riviere, finally, they said, this is not just an education crisis. It is a crisis that threatens the future of the Caribbean. And the time for action, they say, is now.
Is now, yeah.
Now, Lafty, why is this article important? And is there anything in the Education Act that would provide some sort of basis, connection, some nexus to the issues raised in this article and our situation in Dominica? Mm-hmm. And strangely, this beautiful Education Act refers to, in section 146, even before I go to the purpose of the act, I want to share that because it comes directly following this Caribbean. People can find that online. Caribbean Education in Crisis, World Bank warns. And it's written by, there's a name here. Let me see if I have the name right. So you can get it online yourself and follow it. I think it's Bernie Kick or something like Bernie Q, or whatever the name is. But are we lost?
No, we're there.
They're there. Let me just
I'll see if I pull up the author. In just a while. But you can go ahead.
Right. So, is there any relevance or connection or nexus with this article here to the Education Act? And I want to let you come with me to the Education Act, the beautiful Education Act, as Trump says, the beautiful bill, but the beautiful Education Act. Section B, it says review of the education system.
It was written by Shariah Brathwaite.
Okay, so you the listeners and viewers, here the Professor Lofty has told you exactly who's written the article. So the Education Act provides for there to be a review of our education system that would capture many of the things that are raised there in the bank article. Section 146 of the Education Act says, every 5 years or as soon as practicable, because they recognize that things might happen that might not make you do it every 5 years. Every 5 years or as soon as practicable thereafter, Cabinet, on the recommendation of the minister, or the Prime Minister, the recommendation of the minister, I want to make that point, shall appoint an education review committee of not more than 5 members to review and report on the education system of Dominica in accordance with section 147, which we shall go to in a while. So let's talk about the Education Review Committee. The Education Review Committee shall comprise a member having relevant knowledge or expertise in education, and who shall be the chairperson. And I just say a person like me would qualify for that. I'm not expecting anybody to have me do that. The one member from either a parent teachers association or board of management, that is a board of management of a company, a business company. One member from organizations concerned with either community development, civic organizations, right? Industry and commerce, professional services. One member representing the teaching profession, and such other member as cabinet. They might want somebody else, maybe an artist or like Marshall, somebody in music, or yourself, any other person. So that's the setting up of the committee. But what shall they do? What will they be doing? So this committee, section 147 of the Act, provides the Education Review Committee shall review, that is, look at every little nook and cranny of the education system and report A, the physical conditions and the maintenance of public and assisted private schools. What are assisted private schools? Public schools are the Rosa Boys schools, Newtown Primary. The assisted public schools, that's like St. Mary's Academy, the primary, St. Mary's Primary, Convent, Wesley High School, the Adventist SDA School. Those schools that are partially owned by religious organizations and so on. They are called assisted private schools. So the committee shall review structure, their infrastructure as well, because according to the Education Act. The suitability, the suitability of the curriculum. So we just look in this article here about certain concerns about what is being taught and stuff in schools. But the Education Act provides for that review to include reviewing the curriculum to see if it really is up to date. This is 2025. Are we up to date, or are we teaching things that were being taught in 1901? So we talk about the suitability of the curriculum in public and assisted private schools, the performance of students. How well are students doing in literacy, in numeracy, in the sciences, in other things? You know what I mean? Are they exposed to the arts and drama and culture and agriculture? All these things have to be done. Yes, I say here, the assessment held according to the assessment, they have certain grade assessment at the primary schools and secondary schools. All these things, how well are the students performing on these assessment areas, in these assessment areas. And then you have annual examinations set by CXC or the school itself, all these things, the results, you know how people are performing and so on. The examinations set by the Caribbean Council, the CXC and the high one, what we call it, KIP, and all these exams. The organization of the ministry and its delivery of educational services, provision of chalk, computers, manila paper, and systems at the school that the teachers need to do an effective job. There is more in Dominica. I don't want anybody to tell me we cannot do it. So you can give a man 70, I want to that, how you call that, deviate? You can give a man $75 million, allow him to have that money to build another hotel. I'm not talking for health. Let them talk for them. Don't you think $75 million will provide a lot of stuff to improve and enhance our teaching profession, the way we teach, provide for the students, cater for various needs and abilities? You were going to say something.
No, so I was telling you the review, or asking you at the review committee, they are sort of charged with that responsibility to sort of ensure that the schools around the island have adequate material.
Let's say the school system. Yeah.
Schools have adequate materials in order that the learning process
can take place. So they look at curriculum.
Conducive environment.
That's correct. Curriculum, what is being taught? Is it relevant? Is it effective? Is it necessary and stuff? So that's why you must have trained people, not just party hacks that you want to give a job, but people that know what they're about. That remember they said the chairman has to be a person in educational development and management and understands the things of education. You understand what I mean? So that person has to be the chairperson to provide guidance to the committee. Then you have civic groups, you have business people, you have parents, all sorts of people, you know what I mean? So I recall when I was assistant chief, I led a group that has school review system. I have documents there where we had parents, we had various principals, we had teachers. We went into a school. We first of all told them that we were going to come. the areas we're going to examine. We don't go in, like ghosts and give them a surprise visit. They have to be informed, you know? So it's not any kind of like you're going to spy on them.
A fly-by-night thing.
So now, yeah, we continue. So the assessment held in accordance with, let me just not go ahead of myself. The examination, you look at the examination results, the teaching service, and the number, quantity, performance of the teachers, and the teachers qualified to provide, to meet the needs of the students, because teachers are there to meet the needs of students, of society, to make sure the students learn, yeah, to facilitate learning. So the teaching service is adequate. Are they well trained? Are they trained? Are they current with the new things in education? You know, they have to be reading. To be a good and effective teacher, you have to be a reading teacher. You know, reading articles. The DAT must organize opportunities for teachers to learn and grow and move and change so they can flow with the times, not just get stuck. You know, I'm a teacher, I go every morning, I do this and that. I go next day, I do this, I do that. So that's important, the reading teacher. And any other matter which, in the opinion of the Education Review Committee, would enhance the quality and delivery of education in Dominica. And it says here, I want to say section 2, subsection 2, the report of the Education Review Committee shall be submitted to the minister, not to the Prime Minister, who shall cause it to be laid before the House of Assembly. When last did you hear any such report laid at the House of Assembly? And after the report of the Education Review Committee has been laid before the House of Assembly, it shall be printed and hear that, be sold to the public. So here's an opportunity for the Education Division Ministry to make money. So as we read this here, we go back to the Education Act and say, hey, what's happening in Dominica? Because we have a law that provides for us in the Ministry of Education, for the Ministry of Education, for the government of Dominica to review its system, to review what is taking place, to report, and with the intention of improving and enhancing education, with the intention of making education more relevant. Because you see, education is not static. The kinds of things we used to learn in the past, although I must say they provided a solid background for us. Times have changed. Now people are online. A time like in the past, you wouldn't be here like that. You have to call into a building, into a place. True. You know, I have to fly. I traveled all over the world, the Caribbean, at workshops and stuff, meeting other persons face to face. Today, those things can be facilitated by Zoom or Zam or whatever other things, the technology that exists, you know? So that is what I say with respect to that. As we know, so you see, Lofty, that the Education Act provides for a review of the system. And it's damning that we have to depend on the World Bank to make those observations. I wonder what the status of the system is in Dominica.
Sorry, let me just ask you a question here. In terms of that review and the committee being set up, I took note you said at least once every 5 years. The law,
as soon as practical, yeah.
The law prescribes that committee meet and does it work? And
submits a report.
Do you know the last time that committee met?
Well, we did. When I was in the Ministry of Education in 2003, we have a report.
And that's what you can speak of.
My computer.
And that's what you can speak of.
So sometime I'll make it available to you. I'll send it to you. So we do have a report 2003, but that report was in process. Remember 2003. The new government came in 2000. So we were already in the process of, before the report was published in 2003. There were more schools and more students in 2003. The school population was a lot higher. I don't know if you noted the number of students who sat the school living, the common entrance examination this year. Just over 700 students. I see them building huge secondary schools. Grammar school there, and just next door, you have the Goodwill Secondary School, and just next to it, the Seventh-day Adventist Secondary School. But I'm wondering what's happening. Having a school building is not providing education, because education does not reside in a massive structure. You follow what I mean? It's like the dynamics of what's happening there that drives education, not how fancy the building is, how big it is, how much concrete it is until it collapses. So I don't know, I say I'm building structures, but that is not what education is about. And but Mr. Dennis Joseph will tell you, we met outside. We went on the trees at the Rosa Boys School. We went to the Newton Savannah. And many persons listening will tell you sometimes the teachers took them outside. You know what I mean? And so on to do lessons. Because education does not reside in an expensive, massive concrete structure. And you have online education now, right?
Yes.
So that is making it more virtual. That students can stay home. Fortunately, I was able to attend my universities, but then those things are different. You can stay home and participate in education programs. You don't have to go to a building to do that. Many people do their degrees online. They do other programs online. You do so many things virtually. So that's the school. So what does that tell us? How does that inform our attitude and our engagement in education? The fact that we can do things without being in a building with small windows and collapsing roofs. Yeah.
You have one person asking a question here. Ferdinand Lawrence writes, is that committee in existence? If yes, who are the members?
I'm telling him that is what the law requires. I have no idea, no knowledge. I've never heard, I didn't listen talking about private schools and the law. But I'm not too sure. I don't, because have you seen any report recently? Because the law requires that the report be laid at the House of Assembly and it's a public document. So unless I see the public document, I would say, well, I do not know of any such committee being in existence. And if it is in existence, it's up to the Ministry of Education to provide the report. And because it says it can be sold to the public, let at the house, when things are laid in the house, everybody has to hear it and see it. Oh, the Minister for Education say, here I lay before the Honorable Speaker the report on education and so on. You know what I mean? Big, loud acclamation. I haven't heard that in recent past.
No, I haven't heard that myself. So it would suggest that committee is sort of non-existent as we speak.
Well, remember, it's not a standing committee. It's a committee that is formed from time to time.
Evolving,
you get resource people and different resource people on the committee. You bring the committee together. You can have one person serving as chairman for one period, and have another person. If you take somebody from the Employees Federation this time, next time you take somebody from Civic Vibes
but as you said, the last known report you know of is 2003.
I don't know of any report.
So it would suggest to me that even if there's a committee made up of how many members, whatever it is, but once it is not tabled before Parliament or before the House of Assembly,
it's not official, according to the law,
it would suggest that work is not being done in that regard.
But it also suggests that the government is violating the law, because the law requires. It doesn't say it may happen. It says it shall happen. So it tells you something even more than the report not being produced. That there is a government, a ministry that doesn't give one hoot about the law itself. They're in violation of the law. If you do not follow the law, you are in violation of the law.
Yeah, in that case, Mr. Thomas, apart from you and other people who are out there espousing for that kind of report ever so often, what about the people in Parliament in terms of those who sit on the opposition side? Would it fall as part of their duty to ask for that kind of report?
Well, if we have an opposition, or it could be a member of the government side, the Minister for Education, let me tell you, it is the responsibility of the minister under whose purview this law comes to raise these matters, to do the work of the people and citizens of Dominica, and not do the work for a master. So if a minister is aware of his or her responsibility, as a minister, nobody should tell them, no opposition needs to tell them what to do. Because the minister's role is to follow the law, to read this act, to know this act, and to implement, to make sure that the act is implemented and followed according to the rule of law. So, all these things about asking opposition to do that, what you need is that, because that law was
Well,
came into effect.
Arundel, to tell you the plain truth, I'm not living in La La Land in Dominica. And the government of the day that has been there for many years, these people have failed us times without number. And so I am not now asking any education minister to do their work. They know their work, they should do their work. I'm just saying, if as the customary, they are not doing their work, they have failed the people over and over, somebody should at least hold them to account. And that is where I say at least the people in a position or even the general population should ask for that report.
That's a progressive view. These people are being paid vast sums of money. They're being well paid. They go see the Pope, their shoes, their socks, their panties are being paid for by the state. So they have to do their work. The Minister for Education gets allowances and they get a big salary. They take care of themselves well. Their work is to serve the people, to ensure that the Education Act is implemented and all the provisions to improve the education system are as much as possible followed, as well as you can follow. You follow what I mean? That's my position on that. I'm an old man lofty, I ain't going to, unless I'm on the public radio, I'll mention it, like I'm mentioning it in public now. But I'm going to meet Octavia and tell her, hey, have you seen that section of the act? Do you think you should do something about it? She has to be interested in that because that's what she gets paid for. That's why she's called Minister for Education, to address these matters, to implement the law. Because the law is to be governed by the Minister for Education. Anyway, I think we said more than enough on that. What do you think?
Sure. And it's about time we take that all important break. It's 7 o'clock. Thank you. So far, so good, Mr. Thomas. You have, really blazed up the conversation here. Let's do this one from King Dice. We'll be back in just a bit. King Dice calls this one Bring the Money. At least for the better part of the evening. Yes, yeah, I've been saying about our government have lots of money, huh? So King Dice is just saying, bring those monies.
Greetings, Mr. Abdullah. Salam alaikum. I'm singing to make you aware. Things apply at home. We local treasury down here, it's empty. And you in charge of our treasury overseas. Over 6 billion and counting. And we the people down here scrunting. Never in our life before, in our Dominica, all our wealth offshore, and our people so far. We facing a crisis here, so I bypass the leader. We suspect you don't like him anymore. Bring money, Mr. Abdullah. Bring money. Everybody broke down here. Bring money.
Bring money, Mr. Abdullah. Bring money.
Bring money. From our treasury overseas. Bring money.
Way before I forgot, huh?
Only country money.
Let me say a big congratulations to the man, King Dice.
Now we going after credit union.
Signed the knot, what, a week or 2 weeks ago?
People money.
So Dice, you and your bride, good evening to you guys. My former classmate Gilda Miller. Folks, if you're tuning in at this time, it's late. You are late, but rather late than never, they say, huh?
Up to you, Mr. Abdullah. Salam alaikum.
We have been having this conversation, read the relevance and importance of our Education Act in Dominica with the man, Mr. Arundel Thomas.
Electoral reform.
For the past hour, thereabout.
In everybody, any workers can get their salary. No money for passport.
He being an educator himself, is very much interested.
No history, Arab and black slavery. Yes.
In the welfare of our students, especially where education is concerned.
Money before, come front load a little more. 6 billion or 5 or even 4. Bring money, Mr. Abdullah. Bring money.
So all of you tuning into the vibes at this time, good evening to you guys out there.
A billion or 2 or 3. Bring money from our treasury.
Mr. Simeon George, yes. John Blanchard, good evening to you.
Come see, waste all the country money, fighting opposition and buying loyalty.
Glenda Lavidu Burton, you're asking me a question tonight, huh?
You want to cool the tension.
Who is this beautiful bald-headed gentleman? Well, my friend Miss Burton, his name is Mr. Arundel Thomas. You remember this poem, If Dominica Could Talk? That's the author right there.
This is a warning, Mr. Abdullah. Salam alaikum. Your time is coming, we will come calling. If you don't come home, remember you signed the contract publicly in the Windsor Park. If you mama guide the lead,
Mr. Angelo Allen, good evening to you.
Dominica, you got a chance to be a high developed country instead of prosperity. We see in more poverty.
I saw this brother in the past week, huh?
Man,
looking strong as ever. Good evening to you, my brother Angelo.
Money, Mr. Abdullah, bring money. Everybody broke down, yeah, bring money. A billion or 2 or 3, bring money. From our treasury overseas, bring money.
So yes, folks, we have been having this all-important conversation with the man himself, Mr. Arundel Thomas. He's in the house.
The money overseas.
The numbers to call into the program, that is, if you want to, they are on your screen as we speak to interact and engage Mr. Thomas. So yes, folks, it is your time now. Please make use of that time. Brother Trones, good evening to you. All righty. Thank you very much, Brother King Dice, for bringing us this one, Bring the Money. Mr. Thomas, we were on a roll before the break. Yes, my brother, so far so good in terms of messages coming through. Our lines are now open, folks. Please make use of that time, 245-2396 or 615-9470. These are the numbers to call in live to speak to the guest, Mr. Thomas here. Mr. Thomas, any further thoughts as we continue?
Yeah, first of all, just to crown the information I was giving a while ago, section, subsection 6, section 4 of the Education Act says, or section 6 of the Education Act says, the minister, as the Minister for Education, shall table in the House of Assembly an annual report on the state of education within 12 months of the end of the school year for which the report is made. So you see, the law not only requires this review, but it also requires the minister to table in Parliament an annual report on education. Have we heard or seen any such annual report from the Minister for Education? Just asking the question. So now, let's talk about the Education Act. Well, the Education Act came into effect in 1997, and the main draftsman was Mr. Ray Harris, very brilliant attorney. You know Ray Harris?
Yes, I know this brother, yes. He's
a smart guy. I met him recently. And he's the one who drafted the Education Act. And we had several meetings. I was chairman of the committee, and we also have regulations to the Act. Those were drafted by another astute attorney by the name of, we call him my brother from St. Joseph, John Charles, Ellie John Charles, Muspa.
Yes.
My brother Muspa, that's a very smart man. He's a scientist, a science teacher, but he also is a brilliant and astute lawyer like Ray Harris. So he drafted the regulations to the act. So we have regulations which sort of breaks down the act, how you can really apply small sections of it. Now, the act has several major sections. The Administration of the Education Act, it talks about responsibilities and powers of the minister. The act is to be administered by the Minister for Education, not by anybody else, not by any other minister. It doesn't say that here, not by the Prime Minister. I mean, the Prime Minister has overall responsibility for all ministries, but the act speaks to the empowerment and administration of the act by the Minister for Education. It talks about responsibilities and duties of the Chief Education Officer, the establishment and functions of the Education Advisory Committee. It's talking about rights and responsibilities of students and parents, students' rights and responsibilities. I want to deal with that a bit later. But let's talk to the purpose of the law before I go back and deal with that. The purpose of the law is stated in Section 3 of the Act. And Lofty and the listeners, hear how beautifully that is stated. Ray Harris has to take full credit. The purpose of this Act is to provide for the orderly and the coordinated development of a relevant, varied, and comprehensive educational system in Dominica, characterized by excellence. Now, this is an amazing, witty, and comprehensive statement. And if you want to pay attention to the statement here, the act, the various words there, it says a coordinated approach to education, providing a relevant education. And we're talking about the article and people preparing students for the world of work, making education relevant to the changing times. It's not just about going and teach, being a teacher. So the education system must make sure that the persons they produce from that system are equipped with the numeracy skills, the knowledge skills, the critical thinking skills, etc., to deal with the world in which they live. That's the burden that the Education Act places on us, on the Ministry of Education, the person responsible for implementing law. And it says varied. So a while ago, we talked about access to schools by persons with varying abilities, being able to ensure that persons that are slow, because we call them slow students, before we treat them as dotish, because they are advanced students and they are slower students. Nobody's an average child. Because Carlium says that if you have a heap of pebbles and you say the average weight of a pebble is, say, 3 ounces, it's going to, let's say you have a truck dump some pebbles for you, the average weight is 3 ounces. You know how much trouble you're going to have to get one pebble 3 ounces in weight? There's no average. Every person is an individual. And I'm saying we have sufficient money in Dominica to cater for individual needs. Grenada might not have, I'm talking for them. St. Lucia, I'm talking for Trinidad have oil. But the billions of dollars we have could be $75 million, could go a long way in catering for a varied education system in Dominica. So the purpose talks about a varied education, a comprehensive education system that is characterized by excellence. Can we say that about our education system? I mean, you won't reach there right away, but are we working towards that? Have you heard the minister articulating about that part of the education? Have you heard anybody in the Ministry of Education speaking to the Education Act and having that as a sort of a beacon, a guide, you see, a light as to where we are going, where we want to go in our education system? I want to make a caveat here. All education systems have flaws. You follow what I mean? We will never be perfect, but at least we can say we are trying to improve the system in X way, and over a period of time, we can accomplish certain things in X, in Y, and in Z, because there are all sorts of variables that will not make it easy to achieve or accomplish all these things that the purpose sets up. Because that purpose is like a big thing. You understand what I mean? But at least it provides a guide. So that is the purpose of the Act. So we cannot deal with everything in the act. It's an exciting and amazing work, but I want to focus on something here that will be of relevance to our schools. By the way, I don't know if you've ever heard of in loco parentis, a Latin expression regarding education. Have you heard that?
No, I
Your
haven't.
answer. I didn't hear your answer. Did
No,
you hear?
I haven't.
So
No loco, what you said?
In loco parentis is a principle that suggests that while a child is at school, the teacher, the principal, and other persons at the school are like parents to the child. You must love that child. You must protect that child. You must support that child. You are like a parent. That's what the law requires. In loco parentis. When the parent sends that child to your school, whether it's a preschool child, an elementary or primary school child, or a secondary school child, that's where we stop. That child, you are the protege, is your protege. In other words, you have to protect that child. You have to ensure that that child is safe. So teachers at school have what we call in law a duty of care to each child. So every child at school is to be protected and cared for by the school. So we see where that is. So it's not a matter of people coming, children coming there, they having fun and they're going at their home. If a child gets injured in school, in your school, somebody at the school has to take responsibility. You know what I mean? If there's a fight, the school has to take responsibility. So let us talk about the section I want to expound on a bit this afternoon. One of the sections. I was on my way to Garden. You probably see me going up to my little tea jardin in Wana from time to time. And I told you, probably you've seen it yourself. And I'm seeing this schoolboy, he has a school uniform. Then he has a black turban on his head as he be some kind of a terrorist. Then you see them walking in rows with their shirt outside the pants and the ties in their necks. Or they have the uniform in various shapes and forms. Or they engage in language and smoking and doing things on their way from school or on their way to school. That you say, but that's a school child now, won't you? When I was going to school, I couldn't do that. Because I recall in grammar school, the first time that ever happened in my presence, when a Douglas guy, I don't know if it was Ackley or somebody, he was going to the grammar school. And Mr. Goodrich was the head teacher. And on Monday morning, he called him in front of everybody in the school. And he gave him a caning. Because he said during carnival or whatever, he was smoking a cigarette and blowing the fumes in the general direction of the head teacher. He caned him and he wondering what the heck was happening. We didn't have an education act. So have you observed a lot of the children going to school or coming from school and they are engaging in behavior that you wouldn't expect a school child to behave? That's a question for you to answer.
Arundel, let me just put the icing on that for you. You spoke of during
going to school and leaving school.
Yeah, but
talk about that.
Yeah, but I'm telling you, I have been privy to the situation where even during school hours, these students are in school and they are participating in things that are not becoming of students attending that school. So it puts it in a much sharper focus than what you said a while ago, before and after school hours. So that is where some of our students are.
Well, so you see, the ministry has a responsibility to ensure that teachers know what there's a law. The law brings order. The law reduces chaos. The law reduces collapse. And if this isn't happening and nobody's paying attention, it means they are violating the law. And well, there's no way they're not going to take prison or jail, or they're not going to be charged a fine. But when you violate the law, that has its own consequences. The chaos you see in school here is because the Ministry of Education, the minister, who has a responsibility to ensure that the law is enforced, has failed us. Because teachers cannot go and do things unless they know they have the support of the ministry, or they have the power and authority of the act. So I'm going to speak to Section 14 of the Education Act.
And in that light, Arundel, just hold your thought there. Someone is asking an all-important question where I think we can inject here. Alexandra Thomas is asking, has the Convention on the Rights of the Child been beneficial to the education system?
Well, the Education Act itself, remember, I hear a conversation recently, oh, children have rights. And since children have rights, we have all kind of children beating up their parents and doing stuff. Some people are suggesting that children should not have rights. It's okay for adults to have rights. It's okay for dogs and cats and maybe lugaus to have rights. But they think that somehow children having rights messes up the whole society. They're the ones responsible for the chaos we have because they have rights. So I hear that conversation and it worries me because, I mean, there are rights and there are responsibilities.
Oh.
As a human being, you have your civil rights. You follow what I mean?
True.
A government cannot just unjustly and unfairly imprison you or treat you in a way of disrespect or dishonor or hurt you. A policeman, there are rights governing citizens, civil rights that we have. Children are human beings. They're civilians. They are citizens. And they are entitled to rights. Teachers have rights. Parents have rights. Every Jack man under the Constitution of the Commonwealth of Dominica has rights. Well, the government will tell you that they have rights and they try to weave ways in which they can take your rights to you and tell you had a riot in Roseau when you were just standing there and demonstrating for justice. So they have these ways. That's why we have a court system. And you know, I can tell you in my experience at school, we've had several persons prosecuted under the Education Act, right? So let's go. So children have rights. The United Nations rights govern rights of all citizens, including children. But let's talk about the incident the situation I was addressing a while ago. Part 2 of the Education Act speaks to the rights and responsibilities of students and parents. I know some people don't like to hear that. They think when you talk about rights of students, oh, it's okay for parents to have. It's okay for teachers to have. But it says, subject to available resources, all persons are entitled to receive an educational program appropriate to their needs in accordance with the provisions of the Act. In other words, advanced students, special students, blind students, hearing disabilities, students that are slow, students that are advanced. All students have to be given. And say here what the law says, subject to available resources. If you can give 75, that's Arundel speaking here. If you can give $75 million to a man, a public officer to build a hotel, and you have so many hotels that are not even occupied, occupancy rates low, you can give $75 million to, I'm not speaking about agriculture. Let the agriculturalists speak about that. To education, to ensure that the resources are available to teach our children, to ensure that they smoothly transition into the world of work. All students, those with disabilities, let me just put it. Those with disabilities, those that are bright, they should all have an opportunity to do well. We have the money. Dominica has the money. That's my point. So that's what the law says. It says there, the chief education officer shall provide to every compulsory age person, that's a child between the age of 5 and 16, 17, 18, depending. Every child of compulsory school age, who resides in the state of Dominica, they shall provide an education or an educational program consistent with the requirements of this act and regulations. We have regulations. So you hear what that is saying, my brother? The act is saying that the Ministry of Education, the government of Dominica, shall ensure that each child of education age in Dominica from age 5 up to age 16 and beyond, if you're still in school, shall be provided with an education in Dominica. And for the purpose of providing the educational program to the students, the chief education officer shall ensure students are enrolled. They shall direct the student to attend school. So a child has a responsibility to attend school. They shall be enrolled in a school. And except if a student is out sick or leave or so, they all should go to school. And it speaks about tuition fees, but I'm going to miss that. But let's talk about the other thing I was addressing. Every student enrolled in the public school or assisted private school shall, every student, you hear the responsibility, shall observe the code of conduct and other rules and policies of the Ministry of Education and of the school. So the Act requires students to follow the rules and the policies and whatever conventions that the school has. You follow what I mean, my brother? So yes, the law does not give students all kind of rights without responsibility.
Absolute rights, yeah.
Right. So let's continue. Every student has a responsibility, according to the Act, to attend the classes. You can't decide to make two back. You follow, you have to go to school to attend classes regularly and punctually. What can I say no more? I can speak part of the program. To attend classes regularly and punctually, and to participate in the educational programs in which the child, the student, you can't go to school and say, I'm not doing math, I'm not doing English, I'm not doing home economics or whatever it is. You have a responsibility to be enrolled as an enrolled student, to follow the rules of the school, to participate in the programs of the school. Can I say no way?
Wait. So on that note, Brother Thomas, if a parent or parents decide to homeschool their child, are they anti the law?
No.
There's a
provision for homeschooling. In fact, there's a provision, there's certain regulations and laws that govern homeschooling. It's also an acceptable form of education in Dominica. Private education, private schools, and homeschooling. Homeschooling is like private school, where a parent takes this, and there are rules governing that
govern that system.
Yeah, my brother. Law is comprehensive. Mr. Ray Harris in Winston.
Okay, point. Okay.
So, and hear that. A student has a responsibility, according to law, to be diligent in pursuing the prescribed curriculum. A child can go to school and decide, I don't want to go to school, I don't want to do my homework. By law, you're not supposed to be, that's unacceptable. Now, as to penalties and stuff, that's another matter. We'll talk about that some other time. The child has a responsibility to be diligent, to observe standards approved by the chief education officer and the principal of the school, as the case may be, with respect to 1, cleanliness and tidiness of the person. A child shall attend school in a tidy manner. You can't go in school and dress any kind of old way. You're not taking care of your body. The law requires you to be clean and tidy. Also, general deportment, how you wear, how you conduct yourself, how you carry yourself at school. If you have a uniform, whether it's a tie, a shirt jack, a particular color pants or shirt, you have a responsibility to dress appropriately. Now, there are times when the exigencies of circumstances might make it impossible or difficult, So there's a way to deal with that. If a child cannot wear a tie today, or or you can't wear a black pants, that sort of stuff, you know what I mean? Yes, like the uniform. The law arranges for that to happen.
And on that's what to top it off?
Yeah, it's the best water.
Okay, that's the bonified water.
Thank you so
much. On that note, Arundel, let me just give kudos to a teacher who taught me, Mr. Luther.
Yeah, great teacher.
Talking about deportment, that man was right up there in terms of deportment.
I mean, you didn't have the act when he taught,
Exactly.
But even when we went to Rosa Boys School, our teachers had to take things and put in our hair. They can still do it in my hair, as you can see. To make sure your hair was combed, your teeth were clean.
This man had a thing he used to call it Japanese inspection.
Yes, my brother.
I don't know why the Japanese, but that is what
because they were strict military guys.
Hair had to be well groomed. He inspected our nails, shirt, everything.
You went to Rosa Boys School?
Yes, Rosa Boys School, yes.
That's the best school of all. They used to take a thing and push your hair, and I'd go in here at the back. You can see it still. And but then they used to take a stick, put in your hair, your teeth had to be clean and all that, your fingernails. That's a Rosa Boys School traditional thing. So hear that. So we talk about cleanliness and tidiness, general deportment, and attire having to do with your clothes. How you carry yourself, your discipline, your respect, deportment, you know what I mean? Respecting teachers, respecting other students and stuff like that, and your attire and courtesy. Cancer. The law speaks to children having a responsibility to be courteous at schools, and teachers too, to be courteous. And then courtesy and respect of the rights of other persons. So as a student, you have to respect the right of the teacher, of the other users of the school, the staff, the ancillary staff, the cleaners, the security persons, whoever is part of the school system. As a student, according to law, you have to respect that person. You have to be courteous. So you see, Lofty, the act is not just a piece of paper that is remote and unattached. If we were to follow this, wouldn't we have a better system of education, better quality students? I don't know how much of our teachers are exposed to that. When I was the Assistant Chief Education Officer, I told you, I visited every single school in the island. I met with PTAs, private schools, assisted private schools, and public schools. And I had opportunity to have conversations. I had my PowerPoint things, which I went to my computer, and I, had the presentations and so on. I don't know to what extent that's happening now, but the law is important. The Constitution says there's less chaos. There's a less risk of collapse, according to the Constitution, when we follow the rule of law. But we don't finish that in all of today. I know we won't be able to do too much today, but I want to continue with that thought. Every student, hear that, and I want you to pay, and the listeners to pay particular attention to that section, because it speaks to the comment I made about students conducting themselves outside school. And certainly inside school, you're supposed to be in a particular way. But what about when you're outside school? When the school bell rings at 1 o'clock, or 2 o'clock, or 3 o'clock, 3:30, and school is over, and you're on your way to your home, does the law speak? Does the Education Act address these matters? When you leave your home at 7:30, whatever, and you're on your way to school, does the Education Act speak to that? So let us hear what it says. Section 18. Make a note, because I'll be testing you. That's your homework. Section 18 of the Education Act. All you listeners, make a note, because next week, or the next couple of weeks, Lofty is going to bring me to test you all. Section 18. Every student is accountable to the teacher for his conduct on the school premises during school hours. You can answer no more? Every teacher, every student is accountable. In other words, the teacher has authority over you and how you behave during school hours. So when children are misbehaving in school, on the school compound, is the teacher's responsibility not to allow the child to behave any kind of old way, but to deal with that matter. Accountable for his conduct on school premises during school hours and during such hours as the teacher is in charge of the student in class or while engaged in authorized school activities conducted outside school hours. In other words, if you're going on a bel marché, if you're going on a picnic or whatever, I used to take my students out very often at grammar school, at PSS and grammar school. We used to go out. And when my students were perfect, I had perfect students, very few. And the students were accountable to the teacher if you were taking the child on a field trip, if they're going out by bus or climbing a mountain. You understand what I mean? So the law says the student is accountable to the teacher during school and on official authorized school activities. But if we don't finish that, that's not all. It says the student is accountable to the parent, to the principal, for his or her general deportment and conduct at any time that he is under the supervision of the school, that's at school, or at a field trip or so. And members of the teaching staff, including the time spent in traveling. I want you to take note of that, between the school and the place of residence. So the law provides for the student to be accountable to the teacher and the principal on his or her way to school, on his or her way outside school. Now, I'm not going to ask questions about how a school is going to manage those things, because you can't see every child when they leave. So that's understood. But when you do find a child who violates this act of accountability, the school has a responsibility to call him in. I'm not saying they should punish the child. I'm not saying they should flog him. I'm not saying you should put him in detention. But you can deal with the matter in various ways. Have a conversation with the child and call in the parents. You follow what I mean? Once you get the information, because a teacher can't get, like a policeman, you can't be everywhere at the same time. True. A teacher certainly cannot be a policeman for every child. But the point I want to make is that the student has rights, but the student has a responsibility to be accountable, to behave in certain ways, to dress in certain ways, and to answer to his behavior or her behavior on his or her way to school and on his or her way from school to home. And it talks about the student, and the last part, is under the general direction and control of the driver. So if you have a bus, an official bus taking children from one point to another, the driver who's been engaged by the school is in charge of the students. So get a responsible driver. So the child is accountable. You cannot disrespect the bus driver or the car driver or whatever it is according to the law. So the driver of a bus and any employee of the ministry, if the ministry sends a bus to pick up students, they have to respect. So you see how comprehensive and overarching the law is. But we don't finish yet. Any person, the child is accountable to any person under whose supervision students are placed on the authority of the chief education officer. In other words, you send the child to a game, to watch a game of cricket, football, or they go overseas, you know, they have a responsibility to follow, to report to the teacher, to be accountable to the teacher. And in respect of the student's general behavior and deportment on a school bus or while under supervision, as the case may be. So anytime a child is around school or under the authority of school, they are accountable to the teacher. But let's talk about the rights. I want to hasten here, because people tell you they can some teachers treat children badly. They disrespect children and so on. What does the law say about that? Some children feel that they're unfairly punished. You know what I mean? Or they have concerns about their behavior, their treatment by certain teachers. So the Education Act also speaks to the protection of teachers. Section 19. It says every student has a right to be treated with respect and dignity and in a fair and reasonable manner. You know, etymology. I have an excitement about words and so on, and I know we have more time to go and decline and speak to every single word here in this section, but that's a very weighty aspect of the law. It says every student has a right to be treated with respect. So if a teacher does something which violates that trust, there's a problem there. The law speaks to that. You know, and teachers shouldn't be having affairs with their students. I mean, no, that happens. That's a violation of the child's rights, you know, with respect, with dignity. So you don't diminish the value of the child. You don't diminish the emotions of the child in the classroom. No, these things happen. Sometimes a teacher does it because sometimes you're impatient. And, you know, but it shouldn't be a practice to do that thing. Calling children names. You know, you ugly like your thing, or you cursing them. Some teachers curse the children in the classroom. Or you tell them nasty things because you feel they're not paying attention. That has some of us have teachers. I probably have done that sometimes, I'm sure, because I'm not a perfect teacher. I wasn't a perfect teacher. But it shouldn't be your tendency to do those things. You understand what I mean, my brother? You have to teach your child respect. And another point, very okay, and then it talks about you have to treat each child in a reasonable manner. In other words, don't let the crime, the punishment vastly outweigh the offense. You know what I mean? Be fair and be just. And I want to do the final one, because I think we need to take a pause because that's so heavy. You have to call me back again to do the thing with parents and all that, because we can't do all that today. Subsection 2. A student has a right to express any religious, political, moral, or other belief or opinion, so long as the expression does not adversely affect the rights or education of other students or the rights of other persons in the educational institution. Not you. It doesn't say so long as the expression doesn't affect or adversely affect your own religious feelings. In other words, if a child speaks in support of transgender behavior, that you may take offense because of your religious things, but it does not affect your rights if a child chooses to express a favorable opinion on transgender or gay people. That's what I mean? Or if a child expresses a political view, whether it's Freedom Party, Labour Party, in the class, you may not agree as a person, a teacher, student, but the child has a right, like the teacher, to express those views at school, to express religious views. Oh, I believe in the Sabbath. Oh, I don't support the Sabbath. Oh, I believe in the Virgin Mary. I don't believe in the Virgin Mary. You see the argument I'm having here? Sure. The law allows a student the freedom to express his or her views and emotions. But Lofty, this section of the Act goes beyond just law, you know. You want to encourage your children to be free. You want to encourage your children to be bold. You want to encourage your children to be independent in their views. You want to encourage them to have their own views and not be the subject or subject themselves to the views, excuse me, and emotions and the religion or the politics of other people. And this law that was drafted and that was affirmed in 1997 was so advanced that it tells you, look, children have a right to express their political views. And you know some schools don't want children to express political views or religious views. Because I had a problem. I'll tell you, I will be honest. Because you know, as I told you, I had conversations about the Education Act in some Catholic schools. I'm a Catholic. I'm a Catholic because I was baptized as a Catholic. I made my first communion and I made my confirmation. I no longer adhere to all the things of the Catholic Church, so I don't go there. But Catholic schools, and then the law is specific about that. And I had a little ding-dang. Because a child should not be forced, according to law, to attend the religious ceremonies, the church services. And that was a contentious point. I was citing the law. And some people were uncomfortable with that, Lofty. And, you know, I respect Catholic Church and stuff. I tell them I'm a Catholic. I'm more Catholic than a lot of them. But the law is the law. You cannot force a child, and it's a very important thing in a democracy, to allow people to, once they're not violating your rights, according to that, allow them to express. Your refusal to attend a Catholic Church service is an expression. That's your expression of your freedom. And people had great difficulty with that. Say, oh, once you come into the Catholic school, which is an assisted private school under the law, you must go to church. You must do this, and some people find themselves go to church and all that. So what about Alvin, the area that Arundel. I know you love Alvin more than me. It's Arundel, not Alvin.
The area that you touched before in terms of students now obeying the conventions or policies or whatever of that school.
No.
Suppose that.
Don't forget we have a constitution. I tell you, a convention of the school cannot violate the Constitution of the Commonwealth of Dominica.
Okay, so the Constitution supersedes
Section 117. That's correct.
Okay.
says that is the supreme law. Okay. So no convention, no rule, no thing of the school can violate a citizen's right of free expression. And deciding not to go to a Catholic church ceremony or church mass is an expression of your rights as a citizen. So students do not lose their rights under the Constitution. There's civic rights. This is a Civic Vibes program.
Yes.
Because they attend a Catholic school or a Wesley High School or something like that. But some people have great difficulty with that because democracy is a muddy thing. And that's what one of the challenges I had. Because democracy is muddy. We want to give, we want to take, but we have difficulty seeing it in all its permutations. So a child has a right. Your school rules cannot violate the constitutional rights. Just like that riot act, that archaic riot act, you know, they say, oh, because it's on the books and so on and all that. These acts and these laws, if they are in violation of the Constitution, they are null and void. School rules are null and void if they violate the constitutional rights of the teacher, the principal, the student, or the parents, because you never lose those rights, no matter what rules that are made. You know what I mean? Sure. You get my point, my brother?
I get your point. I catch you, brother. Just very much submerged in the conversation. Yeah. Let us go to some of the comments here, some of the comments on the live feed, and then we can get back to you, brother Thomas, for your sort of wrapping up. Marcelin Edwards writes, no law, no constitution. I guess that was pertaining to some of the things that were said before. She comes back and writes, of course, children should have rights in order to be protected. Ferdinand Lawrence says here, how can we expect the students to fulfill the duties if those who are in charge don't seem to do so themselves? Let's take one from Mr. Lawrence here. This is Masho. How often does such information review come from the Ministry of Education? I think we covered that earlier, but just to touch on it again. He's asking how often does such information, I think we're talking about the review committee, should come from the Ministry of Education, he's asking.
Which committee?
He asked, how does such information, review, I am assuming.
Yeah. The law says every year there should be an annual report, but every 5 years there should be a review of the system in general.
Okay.
But the law requires the minister to table an annual report on the state of education. You know what? I think that's annual means every year.
Yes.
So I'm not too sure whether the minister knows that part of the law or is just deliberately violating it. But I haven't heard that. When last did you hear any such report, Lofty?
I have not.
That's because, so can we deal with one more section?
Yes, go right on. Go right on.
So now I'm going to talk about parents because we just a while ago, just for review, we established that students have rights. They have responsibilities too. They have to follow the rules of the school. And I dare say, caveat, that no rule should supersede the person's rights under the Constitution. And you agree with that? That makes sense, right?
Very much
so.
So
The rules have to be in conformity with the Constitution. All laws in Dominica, including the Education Act, especially school rules, if you have a rule at your workplace that violates the employee's rights, civil rights under the Constitution, it is null and void. It's to be jettisoned. You understand that? So let's just say at a workplace you have a law that if you cannot go to the bathroom, at all, that sort of thing. I'm being ridiculous here. And what kind of law is that? Are you not providing uniform, but you're insisting that they wear certain color clothes or certain type of clothes? What kind of law is that? Now, as to how you get your laws addressed, your rules and rights is another matter. But let's talk about parents. Division B. So parents of school children, they also have rights and responsibilities. You don't hear that? The schools not talking about that. I don't hear the ministry talking about that at all. It's only Capital Waters, so that's good. Good way.
You're okay.
Thank you. Section 28, Section 20, rights and responsibilities of parents. subject to section 22, which we'll come to in a while. Parents of students attending public schools and assisted private schools. Assisted private schools are not a law unto themselves. They must follow the dictates and provisions of the Education Act. The convent high school, the SMA, the Adventist school, the Wesley High School, whatever school that government is putting taxpayers' money into, paying the teachers, and I know they don't do a good job of that, they are subject to the School Education Act. You know what I mean? So now, because your child is going to convent, and I've had problems there. I love my convent people. I love the convent school. But I have to be honest when I'm speaking about the law. The law is in fact the law. So when I went to academy and convent and these other private schools, assisted schools, they felt, well, they were law to their own selves and they could do what they want. And that my responsibility as a person promulgating the law, the act, was to ensure that I was honest and forthright. I said, these are the things you cannot do, because the law is clear on that. So parents with children attending grammar school, convent, PSS, whatever school, private and public schools, assisted private schools, are entitled. You hear it, brother? You're entitled. It's an entitlement, not something you have to beg for. A, to be informed of the progress, behavior, and attendance of the children. Don't wait when a child has missed a whole week of school to tell the parents, boy, your boy didn't come to school for the whole week, and the boy finds himself in a fight or something like that out of school, and the teacher doesn't know. When the parent sends his child to school in the morning, you know, and the child is absent from school, the school has a responsibility, unless they get a permission slip, some sort of report or excuse from the parent. You follow what I mean? Seriously, yeah? The school has a responsibility to say, Frederick did not attend school today. You know, that's the kind of thing that the law expects you to do. Now, you might not do it, but let's say the child gets into trouble and you fail to inform the parent that the child who's registered at your school, who is supposed to be attending school, failed to show up at school and was found fighting, killed, injured, hurt outside of the school, and and you did not inform the child the whole day pass. Now you don't, I mean, let's say school ends at 1 o'clock, the child didn't come to school, didn't get a report the next day, say, let's give a day. You have a responsibility to inform the parents on the attendance of the school. You're supposed to inform the parents on the progress, how well the child is doing. We used to have form meetings where parents were invited to talk about how their children are doing. And also there's the school report, report card and stuff like that, that you get. And the attendance and the behavior. If a child is behaving badly, at least, once a child, a punished child, inform the parent that this child has a problem. And we're trying to solve it, and let us work together as school and parents to resolve the behavior problem. Don't wait until the things becomes a major problem, and then you say, well, your child bad, your child not good, and he gets himself in trouble. You see, the law is a sensitive document, a sensitive instrument. It works with you, it tries to help you to make teaching better. Because as we said, the school has a duty of care to the child. You know what I mean? We started with that. Remember I said so, right?
Yes, indeed, indeed.
I also said you have in loco parentis, where the school is like a parent to the child. Those things are challenging, but they're not like impossible to manage if you have a culture. If the law actually is trying to help and develop a culture of caring, a culture of progress, a culture of nurturing the best, getting the best out of our students. And boy, we have a problem now, right? We have problems galore, because they always like to blame parents. Yes, parents have their shortcomings, but at least the school can assist in its way, hold its end, because we know there are lots of difficulties outside there for parents, and some parents are not meeting their responsibilities. But let's continue. Upon reasonable notice to the principal and the teacher to observe, a parent is entitled. You want to come and see what the teacher is doing in the classroom. So you give reasonable notice to the principal and the teacher to say, I want to come and see what's happening in your class. where my child is doing mathematics, English, or science. You see that, Lofty? Did you know that?
No, I didn't.
No, as a parent, you are entitled. The law uses the word entitled. You know what an entitlement is?
Mm-hmm.
You want to get it. That is what a right you have. To, upon to observe the instruction if the parental visitation does not impede the instruction of other children. In other words, my internet connection says it's unstable. I'll stabilize it. It says there, once your visit doesn't interfere adversely with the instruction, like if they have to do an experiment that is sensitive. But generally, if you're just teaching in front of the class, you know, your parent can come in and sit down there at the back quietly and respectfully and observe you.
Observe. Okay.
Because the law says you can do it. So don't make an excuse and say, well, it's going to be sensitive. You like to do that, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Right. And we had that, we encourage parents to visit schools. And it says here, you're entitled to appeal decisions that significantly affect the education, I don't finish yet, the health and safety of the children. So if there's a situation at the school, mold at the school, or a collapsing roof, by law, you can appeal if they send the school children to come back and you're not sure that this roof is secure. And there might be a possibility that the roof may collapse. As a parent, you have a right to appeal the opening of the school unless parents have an opportunity to satisfy themselves that the necessary steps have been taken to secure the building. Now, Lofty, you see those kind of entitlements that parents have, and you don't hear a conversation on that in the general discourse, you know what I mean? And that was what we used to do when it was my responsibility to go and make parents know what their entitlements are. Now, if they don't act upon it, that is their business. But at least they can know.
Arundel, I'm being told of a meeting that was held, I think, about 3 weeks ago with some of the parents, just before the grammar school is set to open tomorrow, that is. But there was a meeting sort of apprising the parents, especially in wake of the falling of that roof. And some of the people from the Ministry of Education, they gave the parents the word that based on the contractor's report or whatever it is, the other buildings were safe for the students to come to school. And here was this sort of back and forth, and the parents asked to see that report. Were the parents in their right to ask to see that report even before their children attended school?
Well, you see, when I used to go to promulgate the act, I used to read a whole list of rights of teachers. Mm-hmm. And I said, but they're not doing teaching us that way. My brother, if somebody comes to your home to steal, or let's say you're walking on the road, cars are nice, and a man gives you a car in your head, and you don't take steps to prosecute the matter, to report to the police, to appeal, to take action, you know, you have a responsibility as a citizen, quite apart from the Education Act. You have a responsibility as a citizen under the Constitution of the Republic of Dominica to ask questions, to demand answers. You follow what I mean? I don't know if you come too soft or too negligent. Mm-hmm. So negligence can exist on both sides. True. The ministry can be negligent in refusing to let parents see that report, and parents themselves can be negligent in refusing to demand the report be made public. You see what I mean? So it works two ways. So I should tell the teachers, if you don't demand your rights, nobody cares. Mm-hmm. If the government of Dominica rules, let's carry them. I'm sorry, I'm too excited and passionate. Violate your rights. You have to take them to court. If you feel that your rights are violated to the extent that you are offended, if you don't take action, they will continue doing it. You can't blame anybody. So, to answer your question is, parents are entitled. When you say you have your land paper, You have the authority over that land. Nobody can come and take it from you. An entitlement is something that you're born to use local colloquial language, that belongs to you. So it says there, you have a right to appeal decisions that significantly affect the education, health, or safety, the safety of your children. So if you feel a collapsing roof and the other buildings were not properly, segments of the building place of the bâtiment were not properly inspected and you have no official report, parents can come together, but they don't want parents to know how to know. This Ministry of Education, they do not want parents to know their rights. And parents themselves, their responsibility to be au fait, to be concerned, to find out whether they have these rights. And, you know, I'd be willing to support, to represent them in court, you know. I'm not a lawyer. But, you know, lawyers have come to me to ask me to explain certain parts of the Education Act. I'd be willing to encourage them. And parents can pursue that matter if they feel aggrieved. And the last part says, no, not the last part. They have a responsibility here to be consulted in the development of any specialized educational programs prepared for the children. So if you say, I'm going to put that boy in a lower grade grade, or I'm going to give him a different program at school from the one he started, you have to consult the parents. ABC. Let's suppose they are stage 1. I like to talk to Creole because it makes me understand English better. You can't take a child and just impose a program on the child without consulting, having a conversation with the parents. The law says you cannot do that. The parent has a right to be consulted. And it says a parent of a student attending a school may, at the request of the teacher or principal, shall the parent consult with the teacher or principal with respect to the student's educational program. In other words, if the school invites you to have a conversation about the interests of your child, you know, the kind of program for your child, you shall go to the school. If you do not go and they take a decision, you can't say, well, you know, I'm not agreeing with that. And then a person shall inform the principal in writing of any medical or other condition peculiar to the child on mission. In other words, if your child has a fit or some impediment or challenge, and you feel that the teacher must pay attention to, he can't play sports, you know what I mean? Some children cannot engage in that kind of physical activity. They have to go at the front of the class because they have certain visual problems, or at the back of the class because they have other issues. It's your responsibility as a parent to inform the school. So you see how the act is balanced, Lofty? It doesn't give one person more rights and authority and entitlements than another. It was an absolutely delightfully crafted document. And I think the Ministry of Education should be excited because an informed parent, an informed school system is a better place to be. You know, when people know their rights, it's a better place for the whole society if you know your rights and you know your responsibilities. And finally, according to Vic Riviere. You remember Vic Riviere, right?
Yes, I do.
I want to hear you speaking, man. Vic Riviere. Finally. He said...
his sister passed not too long.
Right, Doreen. Wonderful lady. So Michelle Jelly has to inform the school of these matters. And as soon as the parent becomes aware of such medical, in other words, the child might begin school and not have those problems. But if you become aware of the problems in the course of the child's attendance at school, you have a responsibility to inform the school. And the information provided in that section will constitutes part of the student's record. In other words, the school will be aware that there's a problem and they will know how to deal with the child. It says, subject to the provision of the Act, parents may choose for their children a home education. A while ago, you asked me a question about home education. The law provides for home education, a home education program, and in accordance with Section 79 of the Act, which details how you go about having a home education for your child or any other educational program. You want to send your child to a private school or some other specialized school, you have that authority to do that. Okay? And 22. Every principal shall establish and maintain a student record for each student enrolled in the school managed by the principal in accordance with the guidelines established by the chief education officer. And so it goes on to talk about different things there that the school principal can do and ought to do with respect to keeping records and with respect to a student, ensuring that the student and the parents of the student are informed. It talks about a terminal report, and it talks about other reports that the school shall prepare. Persons who contribute to the information about student record are exempt from any liability with respect to the provision of that information if those persons in providing the information acted in good faith. In other words, if you see you are in possession of private information of a student, you're supposed to keep it private and confidential. Or if in good faith, you have to disclose it for the protection of the child or some other reason, you are exempt from punishment and so on. And the law speaks extensively to that. So I'd like to end the presentation on the Education Act with respect to those things here for now. But as you can see, Lofty, there's so many other aspects of the law, the Education Act, that we can have conversations on. That parents, teachers, the society, they all need to know.
All need to know. Mr. Thomas, thank you very much, my brother Rondell Thomas. There's one comment that I would really want to read in terms of getting your comment. It sorts of put tonight's program in perspective. Ferdinand Lawrence writes, tonight's program has once again shed light on how far from normalcy our country has gone. Would you agree or disagree?
Well, if you have a document that provides guidance and purpose for you and defines how you should be going, where you should be going, what you should be doing to report, to clarify, to improve, and you fail. But yes, very few Dominicans, you hardly hear talk about the Education Act and stuff like that. So I want to agree with Sir Ferdinand that he is right on point when he says that our system has lost its way. We're gawe. I like to use patois because it's very powerful. It's a very powerful language. Society are gawe. Gouvernement gawe, vous savez, dis-moi, Arnel, but la recette langue dit ça. Et bien, Ministry of Education, plus gawe encore. Parce que si on a fait ça, nous te supposé qu'à savent. In other words, we should know that they're doing it. The fact that we're hearing nothing, there is silence. There's not a program on the radio or involving people anywhere to talk about those things, those rights, those responsibilities, the purpose of the act, and where we're going. You can say that they're not doing it. And we have moved millions of miles, not just thousands of miles, away from normalcy. So we began, Lofty, with this article from the World Bank that raises issues and concerns about the status of education in the region and where we need to go. And immediately we saw in section 126, I think 146 of the Act, that the Act provides for there to be a review committee addressing many of the issues there and more that are raised by the World Bank in that article of February 2019, 2025. Then we also saw further to that in, I think in section 6 of the Education Act, that the minister is supposed to table an annual report on education, the status of education. Annual meaning every single year, just like the guy from statistics, the statistician, the one that likes to call. He's supposed every year, the director of audit, every year they're supposed to table a report on the finances and stuff like that. You know what I mean? The audit of Dominica. The minister's supposed to do that. I mean, the minister's not actively doing the work. You have education officers, you have learning support people, guidance counselors, teachers, principals, a whole body of people that you can bring together and ask them to contribute to that. So we can see that. Now, we went today into the rights of the parents, the accountability of students, not only at school, but to school and from school. The responsibility of the parents. I hope sometime in the future we can talk about teachers and other members of society and other aspects of the law. I want to thank you for the opportunity to be here, Lofty. Thank you for the listeners and those that were following. I really appreciate that. I mean, I talk a lot, and that's the nature of talking. And I hope we learned something, we all learned something. I learned something, you learned something
And that's
from
the
the
nature of
conversation we had this
a
afternoon.
teacher / educator, is to talk.
Yeah, well, we should talk less, but then I talk more. Thank you, Lofty. Thank
Arundel
you.
Thomas, thank you
Yeah.
very much, my brother.
Yeah.
Thank you indeed. Thank you. Thank you very much.
I had a dream. Boy, once I had a dream.
Arundel is giving us a little piece of his harmonica. Some of it was sort of fade, but what was the name of that track, Brother Thomas?
Oh, yes, it is certain. That's a happy land. Oh, Dominica.
All right, my brother.
Thank you, Brother Lofty. Thank you, Alvin, wherever you are.
Thank you indeed. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Once I had a dream.
Once I had a dream.
Where to go? I can cut off now, right?
Politicians hold significant
Can you cut off now, right?
Yeah. If the future for you and me.
All right, folks, that is it for us tonight here on Civic Vibes.
Policies and leadership.
Valid information indeed from the man, Mr. Thomas Arundel Thomas.
Or create barriers that will stifle.
An eye-opener conversation indeed.
To be the best we can be. So, Mr. PM, what's going on?
I know you learned some things tonight, huh? Well, I did.
Stepping down, you created an illusion, an imagination of a bright, prosperous, wealthy nation. Some call you a mama Gaia, I call you a heartbreaker and a dream killer.
That is the note we want to end on tonight.
But no, we can't cope. You're a dream killer.
To all the young persons out there in Dominica in particular who are going through the grinds of this country, keep your heads high, huh?
You're a dream killer.
Don't give in, don't give up hope.
Working for small money. You're a dream killer.
Even though your dreams may seem to be dashed at this time,
Things we believed in you. No, what?
Let's keep hope alive, huh?
Coming through. Made a lot of promises, fulfilling a few. Then it's big celebration for us to praise you.
Ali Ostri, good evening to you. You were late, I noticed.
We have a dream. Oh, our children have a...
Normally, you register as number 1. But tonight, you're quite late, Mali. Guess what? Rather late than never, huh?
So many sent overseas to study. Especially those who support the party. Them workers were blue bags that their parents gave you the X. But every time Felicia come on Facebook Live,
I'm seeing an accident. Yes, a vehicle accident in the Warner area.
I wonder why you acting so sly and how my fears getting by.
So those of you traversing on that route tonight, Warner, be very, very careful indeed, huh?
You don't pay the school.
I wish everyone is A-okay as well as a result of the accident, that vehicle accident, that is.
Students down on their knees. Some call you a big trickster, I call you a heartbreaker and a dream killer. We had plenty hope, but now we can't cope. You're a dream killer.
That is the hope and coping I'm talking about, that Nashel is singing about.
Well, you're a dream killer.
To all the young people in particular, yes, keep hope alive.
For small money, you're a dream killer. You present a lot of things.
Today, tonight, you may be going through some very bitter days, but remember, better days are ahead.
It is so embarrassing while you there smiling. Baby, that's a grumbling. The college waiting.
Yes, folks, you may be going through your very bitter days now, but better days are ahead.
Oh, Felicia had a dream.
Don't throw in that towel as yet, huh?
I have a dream. With hard work and determination, we can reach our destination through access to capital, education, and mentorship. But consider yourself as a young man, stuck in the cycle of stagnation, where corruption creates limitations and overwhelming sense of frustration. Every day he faces the harsh reality. He cannot provide for his family, losing his dignity and his sanity while still waiting for his opportunity. Some call you a blood sucker, I call you a heartbreaker and a dream killer.
So yes, folks, once again, I want to send out a very big thank you to the man, Mr. Arundel Thomas, for being our guest tonight.
And how my fears getting by.
Much food for thought, well executed, my brother. Read the Education Act of Dominica. The do's and don'ts.
All we hear is excuses and more promises while the students down on their knees. Some call you a big trickster, I call you a heartbreaker and a dream killer.
My dear friend Nashel Walsh, good evening to you and the man himself, Mr. Marlon Girodel, for doing this number. Giving our young people hope, huh?
Busy getting well, you're a dream killer.
Ashley, good evening to you.
Be working for small money, you're a dream killer. You present a lot of things, we believe in you. Now our life passing by, nothing coming through.
So folks, that is it tonight here for us at Civic Vibes.
You there smiling, baby that's a grumbling, the college waiting.
To all of you guys, a great week ahead, huh?
Oh, Felicia had a dream. I have a dream.
One last verse, one last chorus, and we bring it to a wrap tonight.
With hard work and determination, we can reach our destination through access to capital, education, and mentorship. But consider yourself as a young man, stuck in the cycle of stagnation, where corruption creates limitations and overwhelming sense of frustration. Every day he faces the harsh reality. He cannot provide for his family, losing his dignity and his sanity while still waiting for his opportunity. Some call you a blood sucker, I call you a heartbreaker and a dream killer. We had plenty hope, but now we can't cope. You're a dream killer. Disregard of mental health while you busy gaining wealth. You're a dream killer. Some in NEP, working for small money. You're a dream killer. You present a lot of things, we believed in you. Now our life passing by, nothing coming through. Who can run will run, who cannot will stay. Waiting for election day to get a payday. Oh, we have a dream. We have a dream.